Another requirement for our restaurant design will be producing camera views and then taking those camera views and adding real rendering, which will be color and texture, to the inside and outside of our building restaurant structure. Now, most of you to this point have handed in black and white camera views. Now, we're going to call upon some of those and look at some of the existing cameras for this particular restaurant example, and then take those cameras that are in black and white and actually add real color and render. So, I would like at this time to go over to my project browser and take a look at the various cameras that I now have produced. So I'm going to just quickly go through the cameras that I have and then select one of those to use as our lesson in color rendering. So the first one I chose is an exterior of the restaurant. As you can see, it is a camera showing the exterior entrance to the restaurant. So I'm just going to use my scroll wheel, and by clicking on the frame box I get my drag dots or drag circles. I'm just going to expand what I'm going to actually be seeing by just changing the camera's angle without distorting it. This is where we have to be careful, because by stretching it too far horizontally or vertically, the camera box, we could stretch it and distort. But I think at this point we're okay. So I'm going to actually use this particular frame to actually do our rendering. So upon selecting the inside and outside camera, I'm going to go up to my render teapot. And at the top of the screen, if I hold it there long enough, it just gives us a quick description and calls out creating a photorealistic image of the building model. I'm going to click on render, and a drop down box comes up. Now there's two types of renders that we'll be looking at, interior and exterior. Now the exterior renders over a history of time have proven to render much faster than interior renders. So by selecting this exterior camera view, I'm just going to go down the list and check off a few things to show you the examples. The first check off will be quality of the render. And if I do the drop down into settings, I can go from a low to a draft, from a draft to a low to a medium to a high to a best. Now the higher the quality of that setting, the longer it's going to take. So I'm going to pick, for all intensive purposes here, a low, which is a little better than the draft. So that'll be my quality setting. Then I'm going to go down to the lighting, and I'm going to do the drop down. And I'm going to look for exterior sun and artificial lighting. And then by doing that, I can also pick my sun setting. So there's three little dots in a particular rectangle. So if I click on that box, I can have the sun coming from the upper right. I can see what it's going to look like at sunrise or at dusk when the sun is setting. So I'm going to shine it down from the top right, and I'm going to pick apply. Now, once again, these are settings you'll have to play with to get the right lighting that you want to show. Then I'm going to come down, and you're going to see a box for exposure. Now I like to leave that go until the render is finished. Then I can go in and I can add contrast, light or dark lighting concepts to the actual camera. So I think all of our settings are correct. So now I'm just going to go up to the render button, and I'm going to click. Now there is a process, as you can see. It's going to take several minutes for it to not only analyze the pixels on the screen for that render, but it's also going to implement it as we're waiting. As you can see, there's a scrub rectangle that goes over the image, and you can watch the percent that it's rendering. And once again, the exterior cameras will render a little bit faster than the inside cameras. And remember, this is on a low quality, which should be a faster time setting for us. Now this camera's color and texture will be based on the materials that we actually applied to the building objects, and this can be adjusted overall. Now as it's starting to render, as you can see, we will get a colored, almost highlighted photograph. Now once again, the quality is based on what we selected, which is the low setting. But this will give us a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like, and we can make changes from here in a draft or low setting versus running it through on a higher quality and find out we have to make changes. So I'm looking at the shadowing, I'm looking at the casting of the light, I'm looking at the background, I'm looking at surface textures, and these are things we can see and change accordingly. Now the lighting looks pretty good, but I just wanted to show you what the adjust exposure box will do. So I'm going to click, and I can actually add a little bit more lightness to it. Now we also got to remember and take into consideration when we go to print these on photo print paper from a printer, color printer, it always prints darker than the picture. So I'm going to lighten this up a tad, and I'm going to apply. As you can see, it did brighten it up. So I'm going to just back it off a little bit. And once again, you have to sort of play with that. And that would be a pretty good setting for low quality. And if I did this in best, it would probably take about 3 times the amount of time to process it, but it would get clearer and clearer and clearer with the pixels. So if this is what I would like and I want to save it, I can go ahead and save this now to projects, and I'm going to call it external or exterior rendered camera 1. And now that will be stored as I close this menu in my project browser underneath renderings. As you can see, I have several already made, but I'm going to go to my last one called exterior render. And you can see how that actually looks. So once again, following this step-by-step video, you should be able to take one of your produced camera views and render it in the color that you actually like.